welcome to another episode of the Chronicles of Mister. I'm Mr. Pierre, and I'm so glad to be joined by Patty McGee. Patty, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
I am a STEM teacher, and I'm sure there's someone listening like, hey, Mr. Pierre, if you're into math and science, why is it that you're speaking to a person who's all about literacy? And for anyone who's in education, we know that if a kiddo can't access the material, then they're going to be lost. So can you give folks, I guess, a little bit or share your journey into literacy education and what led you to specialize in writing instruction?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I
Awesome.
started teaching back in the mid-90s, and at that point, I realized that I wasn't a very strong literacy teacher. And that was because I was a very strong literacy student. I didn't know the struggles. I didn't know how to work through the struggles. I think those of us who have struggled and are teaching what we have struggled through are stronger at that. And because we've had the experience on how to figure this out. So I started really digging into so many resources and people and books that were literacy focused, and revised my practice a lot, and I will never stop doing that. And my career has been unconventional, from classroom teacher to school librarian. Like, I think of school librarian like being a book dealer. Like, I just was trying to match kids to books. It's like my ultimate goal. And then I started doing some work within the region, and I just found myself in different classrooms with different teachers, and literacy just became my focus.
Awesome.
There's literacy in everything. So anyone who's surprised to hear literacy and STEM, there's science literacy, there's technology literacy. It's all a different type of literacy.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I love that analogy of being a book dealer, of going to the librarian and like, hey, oh, you really love this one? Let me introduce you to this. Oh, you really like that? I think you'll be interested in this. So yeah, being able to sort of hook kids into, and adults into books that they are interested in and would love to read. It's pretty dope. You are a person who emphasizes strength-based approach to teaching writing. Can you explain a little bit, like I was saying, for a person who's like, oh, Mr. Pierre's all about STEM, what might that look like in a STEM classroom?
Yeah. Well, let me give just a little metaphor first, if that's okay.
Yeah. Please do.
Okay. When I was learning from Catherine Bomer about strength-based instruction, it really inspired me. And I was thinking, how can we do that specifically with writing? And that was because correcting writing, whether out loud or on kids' papers, that kind of correction approach just really did a number on their hearts. It was like, what is it that I'm doing wrong all the time? I'm not up for that, and no one is. Yeah. And so I started to look outside of school for examples of strength-based feedback, but it wasn't just about the strength. It was about the strength being a foundation and then a next step. And I had this beautiful experience of watching my father learn to crochet from my Aunt Helen. And he would make blankets. That was his only genre. And she wasn't an educator. She was a homemaker and an expert crocheter. But the way that she approached my dad was first by looking at his blanket and telling him what was working and what he must have been doing in making that work. So it was often like, you're stitching here. It looks like you were counting it. And he's like, oh yeah, I guess I was. So then he knows what he's doing well, so he can keep on doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the time we're told what we don't do very well. And
Right.
we're told to correct this and correct that. But we just are often unaware of our own strengths. When I work with teachers and I'm coaching teachers, I take the same approach. When I have worked with different subject areas that I do not know the literacy of that subject area, like AP Physics, for example, I still share this structure. It's just what works. So basically, my aunt would sit next to my dad and point out something that was strong, and then would say, because you did this, you're ready for this next thing. I'm going to show you how to fill a hole in a blanket. And then she showed him step by step, and then he tried it step by step, and maybe not perfect, but he tried it and just needed practice. And so that kind of frame and feedback can go to any subject area. Here's what's strong and why that's important. And here's a next step opportunity for you, which is way different than saying, this blanket is full of holes. This writing has no periods. Like, it sounds so different, right? And we know that the words we choose make a huge impact on how people show up for learning.
Yeah. No, I love that analogy or that example of focus on what is being right so that that can be repeated. And then, oh, you're doing this well. Look at this next thing and add this next thing. Keep doing that other thing.
Yeah.
Don't forget that other thing, but keep doing it as well as this. Nice, nice. In your experience, how does writing help students develop critical thinking skills? Because we know that's essential. And nowadays, that is something that I would say is lacking or being under attack. How do we help kiddos in that area?
Yeah. I think that there's two buckets of writing. Writing as a product, like writing for an audience that's different than yourself, and writing to think. And the writing to think is not when we are thinking of topic sentences and supporting details, and that is writing as a product. Writing to think is maybe something as simple as a T-chart in a notebook. Here's the information I'm learning. Here's what it's making me think about. So that's just one very simple example that we can go back to again and again. Because that writing, we often call it, even if we're using a pencil, thinking with ink. So that we're allowing ourselves the opportunity to take the first thought off of our minds and discover the ones that are buried underneath. And the ones that are buried underneath usually surprise us and delight us that we thought of that. So more writing to think in a notebook, ideally, in some type of composition notebook, so we're not ripping anything out, with a pencil that doesn't have an eraser, with a pen that we can put a line through some things, but we're not taking any of those thoughts out of that thinking space, because we're going to look them over, think about how they connect to one another, find patterns, find the discoveries, test out those theories we've written down, whatever it might be. But that place to think with ink is powerful.
Think with ink. So what I'm hearing is you're encouraging kiddos to, or adults, anyone, write so that you can see your thinking or your thoughts, and not to erase them. So that, or let me ask, why is that? Why are you an advocate for this think with ink?
Because what I feel like, I think it's the dessert is called a trifle, where it's like in this big round dish, and you can see that there's all these layers to it, and they're different layers that are different flavors. And if we think with ink, we're getting that first layer so that we can go deeper to the next one, and to the next one, and to the next one. Or maybe I should have thought of like a parfait. And That's
I
what
like it.
thinking with
Yeah.
ink allows us to do, is to get to all the good stuff that's layered there.
Okay. Once you use a food analogy, I think it'll click. It definitely clicks for me.
Yeah.
Parfait for sure. um, how are you able to help? Because you mentioned that you entered the field in the '90s, and then this transition to now we are in the 2020s. Um, and thinking about myself, this is nearly 20 years in the field as well too. How do you help? How do I say this delicately? How do you help some veteran teachers to let go of the ways that they are just so accustomed to and feel, I guess, easiest for them?
Mhm. Well, I usually start the conversation with what we value the most. What do we value the
Mm,
most in teaching and learning? And I remember a conversation with an eighth grade teacher. Um,
mm,
Gosh, this has to be 10 years ago. And I asked her, what does she value the most? And she said, student discourse, student
mm,
conversation. And so I was in her classroom and I wrote down the times when students were talking with each other. And I wrote down how many minutes that was in total. And when she saw that that was a very small proportion of the time, she was like, okay, well, I do value student talk. It seems like I have some shifts to make. What ideas do you have?
I appreciate that because I think all of us as educators, we come into the profession for that to
Yes.
assist, support, and help students. And
Yeah.
sometimes we do have blind spots, and it will take
Oh, yeah.
some very concrete data for us to be able to say, okay, I may say this thing, but I'm actually doing another thing. And how do I then um, help myself get back to that true north of ultimately I want my students to do well. And that's great. That's great. Nice.
So,
Do you
True
find that?
North
Oh, go ahead.
is my tattoo. I have
My
that
kind
for
of
teaching
educator.
and my life.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I think for many of us, if it's not a literal tattoo, that is
Yeah.
something that is inscribed on our hearts of like, no, that's what we. I think that, like you mentioned with the parfait, when we go
Mhm.
down and we really dig into it, that is what we want. Yeah, we want the next generation to do better
Yeah.
or be better. Um, awesome. What advice would you have for um, students who might struggle with writing, but perhaps they excel at other things? How are you able to, I guess, weave the two together?
Yeah. Um, I really like to get to know a student and their writing identity
Mm,
and think about the times that they write that might be outside of school. I'm thinking
yeah.
about one conversation I was having with a fifth grader, and I said, tell me about you and writing, just any information. He's like, I do not like school writing. I don't like to write this opinion piece. I don't think I'm very good at it. I don't like this type of writing. I struggle with this and that. And then he's like, but I really do like writing at home. I was like,
Hmm.
what? And
Hmm.
he's like, yeah, I like writing things that make people laugh. And I said,
Hey.
that is something we can totally use when we're trying to
Hmm.
write something in opinion writing.
Right.
Gosh, making people laugh is one way of persuading them. We can totally do that with story writing. We have to tell funny
Yeah.
stories. And in informational writing, let's find some topics that are so strange, but they're true. And think about how we can use your sense of humor in there. So I do think I know there's a literacy experience that every student is having, even if it's not in school. And to find those and make that connection.
That's awesome. And it's so interesting because what you're speaking to I think a lot of us know in our heart of hearts, but often we forget about it because of there's a scope and sequence, there are learning tasks, there's a essential but if we can find in each student what is their love, and then being able to attach, whether it be writing, whether it be science, whether it be math, to that, and let them know, like, hey, here's that bridge to the thing you love.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like similar to what you were saying too about the librarian being a book dealer.
Yes.
Of, hey, it sounds like you like this thing. You might be interested in this. Give it a try.
Yeah.
Oh, you like this, but not that. All right, maybe you. And being able to help the students see that the thing that they might believe they have an aversion to, in actuality, there's this thing that's just adjacent to it or parallel to it that they're already doing and loving and having interest in, and we just have to sort of, hey, look in this direction.
Yeah.
You actually do like this thing, and like you were saying earlier, you're doing this thing really, really well. To make someone laugh is not easy.
Yeah.
So you're doing a really stupendous job of being able to write these stories or jokes or narratives or whatever. Have you ever thought about this?
Yeah.
Have you read about this person? Here's another person who's done something similar to that. So that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. What would you say, in terms of, I guess, the age range, because developmentally, where do you find, because I guess what I'm thinking is, because I deal primarily with middle school students, my mindset is, however they come to me, I want to make sure that when they go off to high school and beyond, that they're prepared. So what are some things that you would say for a middle school teacher like myself? What can I do to sort of help, support, and assist my students, but also ensure, or I guess I can't ensure anything 100%, but put them on the best trajectory so that when they're no longer in my classroom, this love that they're starting to dig into the parfait, like they'll continue to do that.
Yeah. I think it all goes back to relationships. It goes back to, I value you. I value your voice. I value your thoughts. I value your struggles. I value your perspective. And I will always hold that, even when you're past my grade level, even when you're older. And I want you to remember that, so that when things get tough, I know how strong you are.
It all does come down to that, the relationship between. What resources would you recommend that students or teachers, we'll start with teachers so that they can be the book dealers and help their students. What resources would you recommend that teachers could go to be able to begin this journey of being able to help their students so that they too can be on the path of strength-based rather than deficiencies?
I think the most pivotal book that I read a number of years ago, that I've read over and over again, that when I wrote my first book, I was told I had too much of that book in my book, that it almost wasn't mine, is Choice Words by Peter Johnston.
Choice Words.
It's a short 100-page, power-packed book about the words we use and the impact those words can have on students. And he mostly focuses on the words that help students show up during hard parts, the words that, the very small shift of wording that he notes that brought deeper engagement. It's just so powerful, the words we choose. And sometimes I'm always doing this ever since I read the book. Like, what are new ways I can say something so that it has the impact I'm hoping for? And that's where I got, thinking about strength-based feedback. You did this, and it's important because it's not, I love it. It's not about me. It's, you did this, and this is important because, and an opportunity now for you is, so like words like that. I could have said, you did this and this is important, but you should do this.
Yeah.
And the but negates everything that came before it.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
So his book,
can't lead with the but. Yeah.
No. Or their cousins. Yeah. However.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be my
like
first suggestion for teachers.
Nice. Do you have any other suggestions after Peter Johnson?
Yes. If we're thinking like instructional practice in general, let me just turn and look at my bookshelf for a second.
Sure.
The book Student Voice, The Instrument of Change by Russell Quaglia and Michael Corso. Yeah, this one was a good one.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. If folks wanted to get in contact with you, if they wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that? My website is the best way. Okay.
So that's pattymcgee.org. Patty is with a Y. If we look for Patty with an I, that's a skateboarder from the 60s. And that's not me. So pattymcgee.org.
We'll do. We'll make sure that we put that in the show notes as well. Thank you very much. I am going to ask this final question because you shared 2 books, and because I'm a lover of music and you talked about dealing in books. But if I could switch the genre just a little bit, if you were to create a playlist, so Patty McGee with a Y, your playlist at the moment, knowing that if we speak again in the future that it might change, what would be your top 5 songs at the moment that bringing you joy and happiness at the moment?
I am such an over-the-top Brandi Carlile fan that I'm so glad you're asking me this question. I'm looking in my office right now, and I have a signed poster from her. I have a guitar pick that I caught at one of her concerts, and I have a signed CD from her. And tonight there's a charity concert that she's having. She has a new album out. The words of every song are just, like really like speaking straight to me. Like she has a song, You Without Me, and it just says it all. I have a 20-year-old who is up in Maine at school, and I have a 25-year-old who lives in Ireland. And You Without Me is like, you heard my heart. So that's definitely one of those songs. But anything Brandi, especially her Returning to Myself album. Okay.
Is there anyone else who would make it on the playlist aside from Brandi?
Yes. Noah Kahan.
Noah Kahan.
Yes, he just had a new song drop, and I'm forgetting the name of it, but the lyrics, and you can tell he's writing this song about somebody who took a different path than he did, and now he just wishes them everyday problems, like just wishes them, just the worry of something normal, like what's for dinner.
Yeah.
And it's just so beautifully written, and he would definitely make my list. I'm really into Lake Street Dive recently. They are really finding their way into my playlist, and Sarah Bareilles has always been there, but she's put out some new stuff.
It's a good one.
Mm-hmm. She has a song with Brandi, actually, that just came out. That was a poem. Yeah, it was a poem that was written by a good friend of theirs, Salt, Then Sour, Then Sweet, which is a beautiful, beautiful poem turned song.
And who would be the fifth one? So we've got Brandy Carlisle, Noah Kahn, Lake Street Dive, and Sarah Bareilles.
Mm-hmm.
No pressure since I put you on the spot. If that's
So my last person on the list would be Hosier because he has this voice like no other.
Mm-hmm.
And it just touches your soul.
Agreed. A great playlist. Some great artists, some great writers as well. So thank you very much, Patty.
Thank you. Thanks for the chance to talk with you, Mr. Pierre.
Yeah, this conversation was a great one. I am looking forward to checking in with you again in the future. Because personally, I want to read the choice words by Peter Johnson as well as the student voice, and then get your ideas on what are some, I guess, practical moves that, say, teachers in elementary can do, so that teachers like myself in middle school can do, as well as teachers who are educators who are in high school to help our students, just to ensure that, again, that strength-based feedback is sort of the mode that we're using, because I think when that is implemented, our students are just going to bloom and flourish.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Folks, this has been another episode of the Chronicles of Mister. I am Mr. Pierre. She's Patty McGee. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I hope you've been able to glean. I hope you will, too, become a book dealer, if you will. Ensure that we are continuing to read books, paper books, or Kindles, or however you choose to read, but continue to read. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as well. So once again, make sure you hit like, subscribe, as well as the bell. I'm Mr. Pierre. She's Patty McGee. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. We're out.